Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with another hip hop topic, as we usually do on this podcast. I was looking at topics or a different article that popped up on my feed, and it asks, or it talked about the Young Money curse, which I wanted to address because I never sat down and thought about it. And it really involved the main artists that were signed to Young Money, not just the ancillary pieces or the pieces that we really didn't hear much from. It was mostly on the main pieces, which we know to be Lil Wayne, Drake, and Nicki Minaj. Now, and Drake and Nicki Minaj are no longer a part of the Young Money brand. Of course, they went their own ways now, but they're a part of that tree or a part of what made Young Money during that time. Because when they first was ascending, that Young Money brand, which was branded or it was a spinoff of the Cash Money Records from Lil Wayne's original group with Birdman and Slim and Juvenile and BG and Turk and all those guys. Lil Wayne had got his own imprint, which was called Young Money. So Lil Wayne signed, Drake and Nicki Minaj, and then it became this conglomerate that we knew and loved, and created all these classic hits and created moments in hip hop that you can't tell the story of hip hop without. Um, but recently, all three of these pieces or artists have been going through a lot of scrutiny, a lot of unfortunate situations, a lot of different things that make them seem a lot different in the light. Because when those guys were at their peak in artistry, they could do no wrong. These people were, you know, top of the top, cream of the cream, pause. They were everything to hip hop. Like, if you mentioned hip hop, you had to talk about these guys. But now, not so much. At least not in a positive light, I should say. Because just to start off with the top or the head of the organization, Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne had a lot of bad luck over the last year. He had that Super Bowl snub where he felt he should have been Super Bowl halftime show performer, and he was, he lost that, title to Kendrick Lamar, and he had this concert when he talked about how he felt about it, and he made this video about him losing it and how he felt it was ripped away from him. All these things, right? So at the least, he looked like a bad sport, or he looked like he was a scorned lover. So Lil Wayne looked a little funny in the light from that incident. And then after all of that, this is his moment to show the world that they were wrong and that he should have been the halftime performer. He releases the Carter Six. First off, Carter Six was announced through a sponsorship or advertisement with uh, the lotion company Cetaphil. I think that's how you say it, Cetaphil, and it was kind of odd because it was announced around Super Bowl time, so it already looked like he was trying to step on whatever Kendrick Lamar was trying to do with the halftime show. So it looked bad. But then you have an album coming out in the summertime called The Carter Six, which we know the Carters series are legendary. The fifth one was kind of blah, but the first four you can say were legendary, especially that first three. But you released the Carter Six, and it is below subpar. There's not many memorable songs. There's really no single on it. It looked like he didn't have any direction, any kind of executive producer. There was no anything to grab onto pause with that album. So it looked very bad for Lil Wayne in that light in the midst of all of those things, just to sum it up. But then you have the comments from Lil Wayne here and there saying that he never experienced racism. Racism is basically dead. It doesn't exist. And then you have him saying like sporadic things throughout the way, and then him having issues with his ex fiance. So there was a lot going on with Lil Wayne throughout the media, like little sprinkles here and there. But it looked bad. We never seen Lil Wayne look that way. And then you go to Drake, which arguably out of all three of them had the most horrible, had the most horrible experiences over the last year that an artist can have. Most are self-inflicted. Well, pretty much all of them are self-inflicted. Um, and the first one we know is he called out Kendrick Lamar in a beef, only to sue UMG and to cry about the beef with Kendrick Lamar that he called him out for. So that looks very weak. It didn't look like it was hip hop. Looked like it was on some personal stuff. And if you know the background of Drake, he was on the show Degrassi, and he sued or threatened to sue them because they wanted to make him put him in the wheelchair, and he wanted his career. He knew he was going to be a rapper, so he didn't want to look weak. Which, ironically, he looks at now because of the lawsuit against UMG, um, and saying they were slandering his name because of the beef. So essentially, you were suing Kendrick Lamar, but you hid it under the lawsuit or guise of the label. So it looked very bad for him. And it continues to look bad for him as he continues to make these little slight moves, and commentaries about Ebro and people who called him out in the beef. And now he's, doing the petty backhand stuff. So he continues to make it look bad. And then essentially to all of that, the Not Like Us song came out, which was a huge hit. And it saying, labels him as something. And, he's still not been able to get underneath that situation. So it looked bad all the way around for Drake, and he might have had the most tumultuous time because the whole fan base pretty much turned against him because of the actions that he made and the actions that he did. Um, all of this stuff was self inflicted. He could have avoided this stuff by not even engaging with Kendrick Lamar, but he thought he was untouchable after the time, especially after the beef with Meek Mill. But he had just came off a loss from Pusha T, but Pusha T is not a huge artist, so it didn't affect him as much. So he thought he was still untouchable. And then, of course, lastly, Nicki Minaj, which she's been probably the most off-hinge one out of all three of them, so to speak, just from the moves she's been making. She's been on Kanye like rants against Jay Z and Rock Nation for whatever reason. We're not sure why. I know she had a beef with Meg The Stallion, but I think it's more than that. She's been going at different pieces throughout Rock Nation, especially with Jay Z. She hasn't really said much about Beyonce, but she's been going crazy on all of those people, and we don't know why. She didn't really list a reason. So she's had that, and then she's been, her outright support of the president and what she's been doing right now, and the recent appearance at the Turning Point USA when she's basically going against her own people and her own lineage. Nikki just looks a lot different in the light now. We always know she's had this, you know, different personality, and she's been very, different, so to speak. She's been more of an outcast or more, it seems like she's an introvert, pretending to be an extrovert at times. But now it just seems like totally unhinged from what she's usually even, um, you know, from what she appears to be. But now she's just been totally losing it, especially with her beef with Cardi B and mentioning kids and family members. And it just looks bad for hip hop and just bad for the Young Money brand, even though she's not with them anymore. But she's still from that tree, essentially. So all of these guys look way different in the light. We don't see these people the same way as we did. These people were essentially the present body over hip hop at one point, especially that 2005 to 2000, I want to say 15 era. So they had about a 10-year run of just being untouchable and being un, unflappable. Nobody could say anything bad about them, anything, because they were just putting out so much great music. We didn't have much commentary from them. But as we starting to get more commentary from these guys, we're starting to figure out that they were not who we thought they were. And it's very disturbing to see, but eventually if people talk long enough, you'll find out who they are. And unfortunately, we're finding that about the Young Money cast or former Young Money cast. Tell me what your thoughts about the Young Money brand, and do you think it's a curse or do you think it's just all self-inflicted? And until next time, I'll see you next time.